You know, I get a lot of response to the show that basically says it's my job to be positive on the air. So let me start with being positive. If you've had enough of the political establishment, then everything's going pretty well for you. Regular listeners know we correctly identified the anti-establishment trend over a decade ago, which led us to predict both Brexit and Donald Trump's victory. Now, the key word is trend. We all have a tendency to be focused in the moment, but it's also incredibly important in your investments and just about everywhere else to see the bigger picture. I mean, it helps to see what's coming. Despite Brexit and Donald Trump's victory, my bet is that the anti-establishment trend still has a long way to go. It's not going to be straight line change or smooth sailing, but I'm going to be watching very closely what happens in the elections in France and Germany coming up. The status quo is not going to go down without a fight, and they're not. I mean, granted, the establishment was surprised by both Brexit and Trump and the Five Star Movement's victory in the Italian referendum. Heck, they were surprised with the defeat of the Vancouver Transit referendum. But the reason's straightforward, and I think it's finally being appreciated by some. They live in an echo chamber. They only talk and listen to like-minded people. That's what I was discussing last week in the Goofy Award with the Women's March. No attempt to reach out, to bridge gaps there. No, it was just talking amongst themselves. And when presented with alternative opinions, the immediate response is to dismiss them. I mean, have you seen that video on YouTube that has all these notables, celebrities, politicians stating categorically that Donald Trump would never be president? It's interesting. Just go to YouTube, type in people who laughed at Trump. The next phase is to try and prevent people, though. When you get past dismissing them, you try and prevent people with opposing views from expressing them. While we regularly declare how tolerant we are, I certainly don't see any sign of that when it comes to entertaining alternative opinions. And there's a lot of examples of what I'm talking about. The very definition of ignorance in these people's minds is straightforward. It's someone who disagrees with them. Heck, I look at my email. I'm called all sorts of names, but really the essence isn't that my facts are incorrect, the research I'm presenting is incorrect, they just don't like the opinion. And now we're experiencing the next stage of response, and I think that's an important one. We're seeing violence. Both sides of the political spectrum are capable of it. I mean, there's numerous examples of well-known people actually calling for Donald Trump's assassination. And they do it with impunity. I mean, can you imagine if someone notable had called for the assassination of President Obama when he was first elected? I mean, it's ironic that some of the same people who are big proponents of things like anti-bullying campaigns bully when it comes to someone who doesn't share their views. I mean, we saw it last week in Berkeley when former Breitbart News tech editor, author, speaker Milo Yiannopoulos, boy, I'm good at names, Yiannopoulos, who WikiLeaks, or Wikipedia rather, characterizes as a vocal critic of third-wave feminism, Islam, social justice, political correctness, and other movements and ideologies he deems authoritarian or belonging to what he calls the regressive left. Mr. Yiannopoulos never got a chance to speak, though. That's the point. He was prevented by protests that quickly turned violent. There's a common theme of increasing civil violence over the past 3 years. In the U.S., it's obviously gained momentum with Donald Trump's election victory. And that's one of the byproducts of change, though. The more intense the era of change, the more intense the reaction's going to be. But here's my question today. It's straightforward. Whether you like Mr. Trump or you dislike him strongly, where do you think this all ends? Because I'm telling you, we're permitting it. We're condoning it. As I said, the tendency is to just look in the moment. Well, Donald Trump deserves it. What about the bigger picture? Since 2013, one of the main trends on Money Talks has been the rise and outlining the rise in civil unrest and violence. I don't think it's too difficult to see the escalation of that trend. My guess is that we're about to see a continued escalation in unrest and violence. After all, there's so little respect amongst each other, leading to a lack of common decency and civility between people with opposing views. In the States, democratic institutions are questioned by Mr. Trump, first before the election, and now those same institutions are being questioned by opponents, including former President Obama. I'm telling you, that doesn't lead to anywhere good. My point is this is not a small deal. I don't think I would be surprised by anything from assassination of a public figure to even revolution, as difficult as that is to fathom. After all, look what we're witnessing right now. Well, what about in 10 years? What about in 10 years when pensions in the U.S. don't meet their obligations, especially in Europe with the demise of the welfare state? Social structures continue to erode. Is it really that far-fetched? Maybe. But then again, I ask people, did they predict the massive changes signaled by Brexit or Donald Trump's victory? What about the racial shootings in America, the breakdown in Venezuela, the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Maybe, just maybe, it's not so far-fetched. All I'm saying is that we're playing a very dangerous game here, condoning this kind of activity. Lack of civility and respect, the increasing use of violence and protest, challenges to the system, well, they all come at a cost. A cost which, by my observation, thinks that most people haven't considered.